Picture this. You're the inspiration for 1 million guitarists, perhaps being the greatest rock guitarist that ever lived, and then being remembered for one thing.
Van Halen had a massive impact because you had a guitar player, Eddie Van Halen, who was doing things that no one had ever really heard on a guitar before.
The difference between David Lee Roth and Eddie Van Halen is that one was a musician and one was a showman.
Most bands are lucky to have one superstar. Van Halen had two. Guitar maestro Edward Van Halen, who lent his name to the band, and singer David Lee Roth.
I get up, and nothing gets me down.
By the way, loitering in the background here, bass player and knitwear fan Michael Anthony, and Eddie's brother Alex on drums. While most people know Van Halen for their biggest hit Jump from 1984, real fans will know that their 1978 debut album shook rock out of a rut.
They came along and were, by contrast, were completely different from the Led Zeppelins and Black Sabbaths.
Bands like Zeppelin and Deep Purple had given their guitarists showcases, but no one had ever done one as fast and as exciting as Eddie Van Halen had played it.
His unique style made a whole generation of single men pick up the guitar, whether the guitars actually existed or not. Of course, some people caught on later than others.
When they played Donington in 1984, he was backstage and he was doing kind of press-ups in the middle of the backstage area, just kind of warming up for his kind of performance on stage. It was like watching Muhammad Ali about to go into the ring.
He did martial arts and he could literally almost fly through the air. I mean, it was unbelievable.
David Lee Roth was this fantastic character who was often seen with 2 bottles of Jack and a dwarf. Now that's what you want to see in your rock and roll frontman.
Above Jimmy Page, above Mick Jagger, above whoever you would care to name, David Lee Roth was undoubtedly the most over-the-top, larger-than-life rock star you could ever hope to meet.
I don't think sleazy lifestyle is any kind of a distraction. I think that's the rule rather than the exception.
Here's my sack of cocaine, and here's my other sack of grass, and here's my crate of Jack Daniels, and did you notice the naked dancing girls as you came in? You know, and I was like, well, actually, I did, yes.
Can you get that on there? Can you make out what that is? These are pants that were made all from bits and pieces of women's underwear that were thrown on stage during the prior tour. We try and get as close to the heart of the fans or whatever part of their anatomy that we can.
But although Eddie Van Halen was the muso's choice, even playing on Michael Jackson's Thriller album, he was becoming increasingly anonymous, overshadowed by lead singer Diamond Dave. A rock legend was his demand for bowls of M&Ms backstage at every gig, with the brown ones taken out. The two egos were fighting for the limelight.
Eddie could walk down the street and he wouldn't know who the hell he was. Roth would walk in the restaurant and it was like Elvis Presley had just walked in. You know, everybody in America knew who he was.
In 1984, an album called 1984 went stratospheric worldwide. They had everything, but David Lee Roth quit the band.
The personalities became so outsized in Van Halen that there was just nowhere left for them to go.
The first time they had a major argument, instead of like, look, come on, let's just be really sensible about this. We've got something really good going, let's not blow it. I've got 20 million, you've got 20 million, so fuck you, and fuck you. I'm off.
Bette Midler lookalike Sammy Hagar replaced him. America, besotted with David Lee Roth, couldn't believe that the band would survive without him.
Who could replace David Lee Roth? There was no point trying.
If you'd had any money at all, you'd have bet it all on Dave being the one that was going to stay a major star, and Van Halen would drift off into worthiness.
Hey, another spectacularly captivating world premiere video!
Ironically, the reverse happened.
Live on Dave TV!
America were just sick to death of the whole charade. Dave had become a parody. It was like, I've heard that joke. Okay, we've had enough now.
While Dave became the Gary Barlow of Van Halen, Eddie's new lineup just couldn't miss. They were even the US Air Force pilots' choice of music for their Gulf War bombing raids. And yet to this day, rumours of attempts to get Dave back in Van Halen continue.
It's hard to overestimate actually what Van Halen did for rock, because they kind of took it to different levels from the musicianship point of view and from the showmanship point of view with David Lee Roth.
The respect that history will accord will be to that moment where David Lee Roth and Eddie Van Halen were able to work together and were able to create the sort of energy that they created.
They should get David Lee Roth back and just grin and bear it, you know?
It's got what it takes. So tell me why can't this be love?
Imagine being in the biggest band in the world and then just tearing it apart and vanishing for 5 years. And counting.